Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today we are going to delve into the latest Persistent Universe monthly report. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, make sure to get yourself some drinks and some snacks, as this is going to be a bit of a long one. So, kicking off with the animation team, they began bringing creatures into the Persistent Universe, with the team saying, "Our team had just signed off on the rig for the first creature, meaning we can finally start animating our first interactable creature." So exciting news there, the very first creature is on its way for the Persistent Universe. It could be the Stone Bug, which I believe is a harvestable made by the Interactable Props team as well, which I think will be found in the caves. It could be something else entirely, but what's also exciting is that it did mention in the Squadron 42 monthly report that the rig for quadruped predators was tested. So I do wonder if this is the same creature and the same rig that they're talking about. If that's the case, then it's not likely the Stone Bug, as that has multiple legs, compared to something like the Pyro Crab, which does have 4 legs. Of course, I have no idea what this creature is going to be for the initial release, but hopefully it means we won't be waiting too long before we start seeing the creatures in the verse, but also the progress on Inside Star Citizen. Also for the animation team, they progressed with the AI worker animation, including the bartender, plus worked on various performances for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo and the gameplay for delivering a person from one location to another. So this person delivery must be referring to the NPC taxi and rescue missions that was on the roadmap but is no longer there, so I do wonder if that will make some form of surprise appearance somewhere one of these days. Now moving on to character art, the team delivered armor variants for Security Post Korea. Also production started on Frontier workwear outfits and undersuits, following work from the character concept art team. For ship art, it just says they progressed with the Argo SRV, moving the exterior through to the final art stage. For the Arena Commander features team, they added Jericho Station and 4 race maps to the back end, which it says design submitted levels and records for, plus support for radar and scanning for Squadron 42. A new concept for Arena Commander was made for the dual mode pre-game, as the team shifts Arena Commander focus to being the primary competitive ranked mode, and this new pre-game allows players to select from multiple ships as well as see what their opponent has picked, and this will act as the game's initial draft system. And finally, design featured their initial pass on 5 new racetracks, being the Snake Pit, Icebreaker, Rotary Station, and the Dunlow Derby, which we have seen around Orison, as well as the Lawville Gateways race. And we did recently just see on Inside Star Citizen, and we will see on Star Citizen Live, a lot of the work going on for racing. Now moving on to the character and weapons features team, they improved various existing features, including the ability to vault or mantle over a ledge, which can now be triggered mid-jump or fall. And this adds further options for the level designers when constructing on-foot traversal puzzles. So this means if you jump and then fall down and there's a ledge lower down, you can grab hold of that while you're falling, which will of course open up a lot more traversal options. Players can now also look up and down while moving on a ladder, and then when stationary, they can look around 360 degrees. So very happy to see that these new sort of basic interactions are coming in. They will certainly be a big benefit for the verse, with more coming later on it seems, like jumping off of a ladder in a certain direction, and even firing or interacting with things while on the ladder. And I think this is coming in with 3.18, because I'm sure there was a leak where the person couldn't climb the ladder, but I think that's because you need to interact with them using the F key. We will see. Finally, for the team, the ability to move all items from one inventory to another is now in the final internal test sweep, which is wonderful to hear and should make inventory management more user-friendly. Now, for the gameplay features team, they continued on the initial implementation of the Cargo Refactor and new commodity kiosk UI for 3.18, which will affect buying, selling, and moving around single SEU cargo containers with a tractor beam, obviously outside of green zones. As of course, for 3.18, we still won't be able to draw our weapons or our tools in armistice zones. Now, the team also continued to support the buying and selling of FPS refillable RMC containers and the containers created by the Vulture and Reclaimer. Now, these are the containers that we can sell on or we can use to fill up our repair tools to fix up any pot marks on our ship. Updates to prisons were made, and I believe this is now committed for the 3.18 build, including the kiosks which received new gameplay items. Not sure what items these are. Plus, the setup and inventories were adjusted across all shops for new commodities that come with the cargo refactor. Sounds pretty interesting. I do wonder if this is anything to do with what Tony Zurovec was hoping to get in time. More commodities could see hauling get a bit more worthwhile, although I'm sure they did say that there won't be any more commodities to trade. So we'll see what happens there. The shop setup for Pyro began, and it is ongoing, plus UI screens for the commodity kiosks. Mission Manager and Bounty Hunting progressed as well. So the commodity kiosk does look much better and should really help to elevate the hauling profession somewhat, making it a lot more clearer for us to know what's going on. And hopefully for 3.18, we will see maybe the new Mission Manager app, although I don't think we will be, but it would be very nice if we could. This was what we saw on the Mobiglas app during CitizenCon, but also more bounty hunting updates. Whether these are coming for 3.18 or not is yet to be seen. Most likely not, but they are certainly now heavily focused on expanding the bounty hunting profession. And of course they will continue to convert all of the Mobiglas into the new building blocks, and that includes all the old apps and many new apps. Now, planning and documentation began for freight elevators and subsequent cargo refactor updates, which will begin in Q4 of this year. Also, documentation and investigation began into multi and large container cargo delivery missions that say could coincide with the delivery of Tier 1 cargo. Now, these missions for Tier 1 are not going to be a 3.18 release. It was mentioned in that Inside Star Citizen that these multi-box or larger container missions are to be for a subsequent patch, with them splitting cargo hauling and commodity trading, which is more of a risk-reward thing, and then cargo hauling will be working for a company. They provide you with 200 SEU of cargo. You've got to then move that from one location to the next, but you don't have to pay out for it. So great to see that they are making progress on that, and I really look forward to seeing these cargo hauling missions. It certainly sounds like 3.18 is getting a big change-up for cargo in many ways, but much more to come later on. Also, very nice to hear that freight elevators are now starting to get their work, although the roadmap does say that the work on freight elevators go on all the way through till May next year, so they are a bit of a way off yet. Now, time was put into the fresh derelict harvestables that can spawn in space to make them look more worn and authentic, and these are to complement the hull scraping mechanic in 3.18 to provide more opportunities for salvagers to make money. And finally, the team worked on gravity and life support, which is approaching final, with the remainder of the work on the resource management system bringing it all together. And this has progressed pretty quickly. There is still more components to bring in, of course, but life support gravity can get ticked off. Now, for the mission feature team, they added the final polish to various missions, including the new ending to the prison escape mission, which now allows you to actually get rid of your crime stat. They then expanded the Jumptown Drug Lab, with the team saying it has doubled in size and now includes a second entrance, second drug dispenser, and multiple windows and skylights so you can see inside. And to improve the gunplay, the interior is now circular, and they've also removed most of the doors for longer lines of sight. So sounds like much needed improvements have come in for Jumptown, and from what I understand, the updates to Jumptown are actually in the 3.18 build already. Now, trespass areas were also updated, so lawful trespass and entering hostile areas are now different. Plus, the name of the org in control of the area will show up when entering, and once access to the area is revoked, so for example at the end of a mission, players are shown a countdown to when they will be trespassing should they remain there. And finally, bugs relating to crime stat and ship collisions were identified and fixed. So I know for the current 3.18 Evocati tests, they have asked the Evocati if it's stable enough to test out these new trespass design updates, but it's also interesting that they will present the org in control of the area. Maybe that's to do with the reputation coming later, but we are yet to see any of this, of course. Now onto the vehicle feature team. They supported the docking and transit features, with both being long-term requirements for the team, as each release poses new issues which will remain until the launch of the new transit system. Also, MFDs or multifunction displays are progressing well, with the weapons, emissions, and ship models submitted and working in the game. The self-status screen also made it into the Squadron 42 UI stream, and tasks were started for the comms and weapon self-status MFDs as well. Sounds like they are making some great progress here with the MFDs. Very happy to hear that they have converted so many of them already. I didn't realize they had completed that many, so it shouldn't be too long until we get these in the PU. But as usual, it looks like they are putting them into Squadron first, getting them proved out there, and then we will see them come to the PU. Work also began on the new version of Quantum Travel, which says currently involving refactoring the current feature in prep for the rework. Now, to be fair, the Quantum Travel effects are pretty old, so it will be nice to see them updated, and with the new GPU particle options, I suspect they will not just be more performance friendly, but look incredible as well. Now, the team's AI support increased this month, and they are currently further developing the ground vehicle tech, which says will be enabled in a coming sprint. So it does sound like it might miss the 3.18 window. Master modes progressed well in testing. It says the team confirmed the speeds for SEM, or Space Combat Maneuvering, or is it Safe Combat Maneuvering now, boost and quantum travel, and are now testing racing ships and looking into how to balance disabling ships as they change between SEM and quantum travel. With the team saying, we also used this opportunity to rebalance a lot of weapons, redoing the differences in behaviours that we had reset for the Alpha 3.14 rework. So firstly, great to hear that they are getting the SEM speeds and all the speeds of ships sorted. Also sounds good testing the racing ships, because we know racing is going to be quite a bit of a focal point for 3.18. But this is pretty great news, pushing that balance more to get the weapons in line with where they want them to be. So very happy to hear that that has continued on, now that they've got all the ship speeds sorted, so slowed them down again. So I'm very interested to see where the Master Mode release will fall, as it does sound like it's almost ready to go. Now, resource network support continued with the power conversion and initial work on integrating heat components. The team are currently setting out their design support for the feature, as a lot of the components will need converting once the technical work is complete. And alongside this, the aiming refactor is now almost complete, with the remaining work focusing on implementing the new UI. Finally, for the vehicle features team, they say a big step was made on control surfaces, and now ships gliding without thrusters has been reduced over the previous surface model, plus the new restricted area system passed its go-no-go and is now enabled. But very interesting to hear that they're now making progress with the control surfaces to get ship flight in atmosphere far more realistic. This is to do with when we start getting flaps and ailerons and being able to use the ship's aerodynamics to actually glide, rather than just what we're using right now, which is thrusters. Now, for the graphics, visual effects programming and planet tech team, they focused on damage maps, fixing missing initial damage on debris, incorrect damage map sizes, and inconsistencies between ship sizes. Plus, time was spent investigating network and persistence for debris. And all of this, I believe, is relating to hull scraping for 3.18 and salvaging beyond. Further progress was made on porting gas clouds and CPU particles to Gen 12, plus the Gen 12 GPU marker refactor was completed, and some issues were fixed relating to the hair and hologram shaders. I'm very excited to see what Gen 12 for 3.18 can do for us all in terms of performance, plus I do wonder if the clouds are going to look or perform better as well. That would be very nice. Now, for the ongoing data pipeline refactor, the team continued to work on skin files, allowing compacted non-split files to be compiled or loaded, plus implemented process groups in support of multiple input formats. Development of screen space shadows began, which involved adjusting ray tracing to account for thin objects. The team also added new features for the UI mesh shader, alongside enabling wetness effects to work with blood, sweat, and tears. And finally, the team closed out Rastar version 1 and fixed remaining bugs and crashes raised by the content teams. Plus, various fixes were submitted for rivers, and research and development began on water simulation and water rendering improvements. So Rastar, as we heard on Inside Star Citizen, is the internal tool that they use to build outposts and settlements and populating the planets and moons of both Pyro and Stanton. and will eventually be the tool that we use to build our own homesteads. Now for the engine team, the physics team worked on various improvements. More progress was made on the Gen 12 transition, with a lot of work done on particles and a lot more. Opaque sun shadows for gas clouds, image ghosting, various game post effects like water droplets, flashbangs, ocular migraines and blood vision, the projectile manager, render to texture support functionality and render target debug viz were all ported to Gen 12 as well. Quite a mouthful, but cool to hear that they're getting flashbang post effects in, as that will be a lot of fun when clearing ships for boarding and so forth, even in 3.18, being able to disable a ship, get on board, throw a flashbang into a room and hopefully capture the ship. Now regarding atmosphere and volumetric clouds, improvements were made to the Gen 12 code by adopting the transient passes, plus a preview mode was implemented to help lighting artists setting up planet atmospheres. And finally, the team made additional improvements to entity lifetime management. All legacy entity lifetime code was removed, the entity allocator was changed to be page-based, and in-engine file mapping support was completed. Not sure what any of that is. Now, moving on to the lighting team. They continued their work on Pyro, Lorville, and the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, Orison's racetracks, Security Post Korea, and derelict space settlements. Lorville also received a lighting cleanup to improve certain areas, while the level as a whole was tidied up to bring it back to its original intended state. Plus, they closed out various previous locations to ensure that everything is up to scratch. Now, for the EU locations team, they continued working on Pyro's rest stops, which we actually got to see on Inside Star Citizen. It says they're making great progress on the internals of the station, and they then moved focus towards the station's external arms. Work was also closed out on Security Post Korea, and progress was also made on the IAE event halls and cargo. They also continued their ongoing task of adding life to landing zones. Now, by life to landing zones, this could be the shops and patrons work that they've been doing, trying to bring more realism to basically the NPCs walking around, looking like they're shopping and interacting with shopkeepers and so on. With persistent entity streaming coming in 3.18, there is a good chance that NPCs and AI will behave a lot more like they're intended to for a much greater period of time, as the servers will not degrade as quickly. Now, for the narrative team, they provided additional support to fix bugs and issues that arose through testing, and for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, they helped to deliver new content that was recorded in a recent motion capture session, with the team saying, "This was particularly exciting, as we were able to utilize one of our dedicated narrative designers to build the AI behavior to hand over to design for implementation." Narrative also started working with mission features on the existing air traffic controller behavior that will help fix issues with the previous behavior, while also supporting the newest upgrades to the system, which will then be standardized for any additional ATC character and scripts in the future. And I think the ATC had to be converted to persistent entity streaming as well, so that will be running on that new system. Now, the narrative team continued to meet with the mission team to develop the investigation missions, which we heard about during CitizenCon. The writers were tasked with coming up with a sample mystery for players to investigate to stress test the foundational system, and basically see how scalable this mission could be. As I say, I am really intrigued to see what they can come up with here, as I'm very much looking forward to more story-driven missions, and hopefully they can keep them thoroughly entertaining and scalable so that there is enough content. In addition to this, the team provided text for upcoming missions and opened up discussions on a handful of other mission types that will be coming in the next few patches. So great to see that they are really going for it now in trying to get more missions out, as these will be fun to do outside of the more dynamic stuff like mining, salvaging, hauling, even racing. And the more they build between now and the launch of version 1.0, by the time it does launch, there should be loads of missions available. But I suppose the downside of playing the alpha is that we would have probably played them all. The team also worked closely with the design and UI teams on some of the upcoming MobiGlas apps that will support new gameplay currently in development. And if I were to guess here, one of them would certainly be the bounty hunting app. As I say, they are heavily invested in bounty hunting to get that to version 2, which excites me greatly because I have been holding off doing any form of bounty hunting just because it's a bit too rinse-repeat right now. I want that cat and mouse gameplay of tracking and tracing and chasing. Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a cargo hauling app coming or in the works to coincide with maybe not the first iteration of the cargo refactor, but subsequent ones, especially when we're starting to take on missions for cargo companies transporting big boxes. Now, moving on to the Montreal Online Services team, they spent the month completing several remaining features, which include the new character repair reset process and how in-game transactions are handled. They also improved the new login flow process to allow for faster entry into the game when a player has a pre-entitled account, as well as the new retry service that will submit a message back to the service application for a reattempt. And finally, the team made quality of life updates that sorts the in-game friends list alphabetically, which is planned, it says, to come with Alpha 3.18. So that will be a great addition, making it far easier to find the person you're looking for. Now onto the Montreal Live Tools team. Throughout the month, the team was focused on features relating to persistent entity streaming, specifically the implementation of the login flow module in the Network Operations Center. And this module, it says, gathers different features, including the ability to manage entitlements and rentals, and it also provides more detailed and precise information to users about the login details for players, enabling the detection and analysis of issues. And this is likely what the Avicati have been testing and stress testing right now, this login flow, trying to hone in on that and get it as stable as possible. Now, for the Turbulent Web Platform team, they focused on generating brand alignment across the website, losing some of the legacy UI elements and bringing in a new look. Plus, the team continued to rework the roles and access controls for improved security. Now, the UI team continued developing the new Starmap, particularly the underlying tech to allow them to easily display it in different locations. So, for example, showing the Starmap in ships, the Mobiglas, and potentially screens in the levels. Plus, they also updated the controls and improved the look of planets. So, sounds pretty interesting, this, being able to access the Starmap from not only your Mobiglas, but on a ship screen like an MFD, or even in other locations, walking around and finding a screen planetside, being able to look at the Starmap. And also the fact that they are updating the controls sounds to me like they've got the majority of the work done for it and they're just making it user-friendly, which is player-facing friendly. If only they could just show us it. And finally, for the UI team, they continued to adapt and bug fix the loadout system to ensure that it works with persistent entity streaming. So finally, we have the visual effects team. They completed their work on salvaging and repair. 2 vehicles continued through the visual effects production phase, receiving thruster effects, damage, atmospheric entry, quantum travel, and shields. And to finish with, for the visual effects team, they implemented a task pool which allows the artists to tackle various miscellaneous tasks that have accumulated in the backlog, with the team saying this typically consists of minor bugs and quality of life improvements, so it has been great to be able to focus on these things while continuing to support major content and features. So, there you go. That is the monthly report for all the work that went on in October. Quite a lot of stuff going on right now, and it seems all very heavily focused on 3.18, persistent entity streaming, and just pushing that and getting it as stable as possible. With that said though, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. I also often get asked what my PC is, what my spec is, what devices do I use, what monitor do I use, so if you are interested, do check the description out to learn more. Come and follow me over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome. We are just hanging out, chilling out while we wait for 3.18 to drop to Wave 1. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.